When a rude passenger kicked a woman's seat on a flight? What happened next will leave you speechless. You know that feeling when you're on a plane, finally settling into your seat after the chaos of boarding, security lines, and cramped gate areas? You're thinking about the journey ahead, maybe pulling out a book or your laptop, ready to make the most of the next few hours. You've got your little bubble of space, your seat, your armrest, your tiny window into the clouds. It's not much, but it's yours for this flight. Now imagine someone behind you decides that your space isn't really yours at all. This is the story of what happened on Flight 447 from Chicago to London, a story that started with dirty sneakers pressed against a seatback, and ended with a lesson in respect that nobody on that plane will ever forget. And I promise you, the way this unfolds, you won't see it coming. So buckle up. Keep your tray tables locked. And whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because this story is about to take off. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Dr. Maya Thompson boarded the Boeing 787 at O'Hare International Airport. The terminal had been buzzing with the usual symphony of rolling luggage, gate announcements, and travelers hurrying to make their connections. Maya had navigated it all with practiced ease. This wasn't her first international flight, not by a long shot. At 42 years old, Dr. Thompson was a professor of sociology at Northwestern University, specializing in cultural dynamics and social behavior. She'd been invited to deliver the keynote address at a prestigious conference in London on cross-cultural communication. Her presentation was titled Respect Across Boundaries, the Universal Language of Human Dignity. The irony of what was about to happen? Well, let's just say the universe has a twisted sense of humor sometimes. Maya had dressed comfortably for the 7-hour flight, a soft grey sweater, dark jeans, and her favorite pair of reading glasses tucked into her carry-on. Her laptop bag contained her speech notes, research papers, and a book she'd been meaning to finish for months. As she made her way down the narrow aisle of the aircraft, squeezing past other passengers stuffing oversized bags into overhead compartments, she felt that familiar mix of anticipation and exhaustion that comes with international travel. Seat 24B. Middle seat, economy class. Not ideal, but she'd make it work. She always did. She stowed her bag, settled in, and pulled out her laptop. The passenger in the window seat, an older gentleman already absorbed in a thick paperback, nodded politely. The aisle seat was still empty. Maya took a deep breath, opened her document, and began reviewing her keynote speech. She had exactly 7 hours to polish it to perfection. That's when she heard them. 3 young women came bouncing down the aisle, laughing loudly, their conversation cutting through the ambient noise of the cabin like a knife. They couldn't have been more than 19 or 20 years old, dressed in expensive athleisure wear, designer bags slung over their shoulders, phones out and recording everything. "Oh my God, this is going to be so epic for the vlog," one of them squealed. "I can't believe we're going to London for a week," another chimed in. And then there was Lily. Lily had that particular kind of confidence that comes from never being told no too many times in life. Long blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, a cropped hoodie with a luxury brand logo across the chest, and those sneakers, white, expensive, and currently very, very dirty from who knows what adventures they'd been on. She was scrolling through her phone, barely looking where she was going, bumping into seats as she passed. They claimed the row directly behind Maya. Rows 25A, 25B, and 25C. Maya heard the shuffling, the giggling, the sound of bags being shoved around. She tried to focus on her screen, on the words she'd carefully crafted about dignity and respect. But focus was becoming difficult. Because that's when she felt it. A pressure against the back of her seat. Not a gentle pressure, a full, forceful push. Then another one. And another. Maya turned around slowly, already knowing what she'd see but hoping she was wrong. She wasn't. Lily had stretched out in her seat, shoes still on, feet pressed firmly against the back of Maya's seat. And she wasn't just resting them there, she was pushing, adjusting, getting comfortable as if Maya's seat was her personal footrest. Each movement sent a jolt through Maya's seat, making her laptop screen wobble, disrupting any chance of concentration. Maya took a breath. Stay calm. Give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she doesn't realize. "Excuse me," Maya said, turning around with a polite smile. "Would you mind not kicking my seat? I'm trying to work." Lily glanced up from her phone for exactly half a second. Her friends kept chattering beside her, barely noticing the interaction. Lily's eyes met Maya's, and something flickered there, not embarrassment, not apology, but something else entirely. Annoyance, maybe. Or entitlement. She smirked. Actually smirked. "It's just a seat," Lily said, her voice dripping with casual dismissiveness. "Deal with it." Then she went right back to her phone, feet still planted against Maya's seat back, and deliberately pushed, harder this time. The elderly gentleman in the window seat beside Maya looked up from his book, his eyebrows raised. A woman across the aisle glanced over. The cabin, which had been filled with the ambient noise of a plane preparing for takeoff, suddenly felt charged with a different kind of energy. Tension. Maya felt her jaw tighten. She was a professor. She'd dealt with difficult students, challenging colleagues, complicated research dynamics. She knew how to stay composed under pressure. But this was different. This was her space being invaded, her dignity being tested, and it was happening 35,000 feet in the air with nowhere to go. She turned back to her laptop, her heart beating a little faster now. Don't engage. Don't escalate. Just get through the flight. But Lily wasn't done. Oh no. She was just getting started. As the plane began to taxi toward the runway, the flight attendants made their rounds, checking seatbelts, ensuring tray tables were up, bags properly stowed. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom with the standard announcements, flight time, weather conditions, all that routine information that passengers barely listen to anymore. Maya tried again to focus on her work. She really did. But every few minutes, like clockwork, she'd feel it, tap tap tap. Push. Adjust. Kick. It was maddening. Not just the physical sensation, but the psychological weight of it. Because this wasn't accidental. This was deliberate. This was someone saying, without words, "I don't care about you. Your comfort doesn't matter to me. You're beneath my consideration." And Maya knew, she knew from her years of research, from her academic work studying social dynamics, that this behavior said so much more than just rudeness. It spoke to something deeper. A sense of superiority. A lack of empathy. An inability to see another person as fully human, fully deserving of basic respect. The plane lifted off, climbing through the clouds over Lake Michigan. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, trying to find her center, that calm place she'd cultivated through years of meditation and mindfulness practice. She thought about her mother, who had taught her that grace under pressure wasn't weakness, it was strength. Behind her, Lily and her friends were getting louder. "Did you see Jake's comment on my post? His SO into me," Lily announced. "Oh my God, you have to DM him when we land," one friend responded. Wait, take a picture of me with the window. I need content." Phones came out. Duck faces were made. And through it all, Lily kept her feet pressed against Maya's seat, shifting and pushing every few minutes like she was testing boundaries, seeing what she could get away with. 30 minutes into the flight, Maya felt another particularly hard kick. Her water bottle, which she'd placed in the seat pocket, jostled and nearly fell. Her laptop screen shook. The gentleman beside her glanced over again, this time with clear sympathy in his eyes. Maya had had enough. She closed her laptop carefully, set it aside, and turned around once more. This time, her voice was firmer. Not loud, not aggressive, but firm. The voice she used when a student had crossed a line in class. "Please," Maya said, making direct eye contact with Lily. "Take your feet down. This is uncomfortable for me, and it's disrespectful." Lily looked up from her phone slowly, as if Maya was interrupting something terribly important. Her friends stopped their conversation, suddenly aware that something was happening. The passengers nearby, a young couple in the row ahead, a businessman across the aisle, a mother with 2 children a few rows back, all seemed to tune in to the confrontation unfolding. And that's when Lily decided to make a scene. She didn't just respond. She performed. Lily sat up straighter, looked around the cabin as if gathering witnesses, and said loudly, loud enough for at least 5 rows to hear, "You're overreacting. I paid for my ticket just like you did. I have every right to be comfortable." Her voice had that particular tone that Maya recognized instantly from her research, the tone of someone weaponizing victimhood, flipping the script to make themselves the wronged party. It was a masterclass in manipulation, really. And it was happening in real time, in public, with dozens of witnesses. Maya felt heat rise to her face. Not from anger exactly, though there was some of that, but from the sheer audacity of it. From the recognition that she was being gaslit at 30,000 feet. "I'm not asking you to be uncomfortable," Maya replied, keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "I'm asking you to not kick my seat. That's a reasonable request." "I'm not kicking it," Lily shot back, rolling her eyes dramatically. "My feet are just resting there. You're being, totally oversensitive." One of her friends nodded along, adding, "Yeah, it's really not that big a deal." The third friend just looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to be anywhere else but there. Maya could feel eyes on them now. The whole surrounding area of the cabin had gone quiet, passengers pretending to read their books or watch their screens but clearly listening to every word. Because everyone knows this dynamic. Everyone has been in this situation in some form, watching someone be treated poorly, wondering if they should intervene, mostly just hoping the conflict will resolve itself without requiring their involvement. The gentleman beside Maya set down his book entirely. The woman across the aisle leaned forward slightly, her expression troubled. And then Lily did something that changed everything. With deliberate, unmistakable intention, while making eye contact with Maya, she kicked the seat again. Hard. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't thoughtlessness. It was a power move. A statement that said, "I will do what I want, and you can't stop me." The elderly man beside Maya cleared his throat. "Young lady," he said in a quiet but firm British accent, "that was uncalled for." Lily whipped around to face him. "Excuse me? Were you talking to me?" "I was," he replied calmly. "You're being quite rude." "Oh, so now everyone's ganging up on me?" Lily's voice went up an octave, reaching that pitch that makes flight attendants' ears perk up from 3 sections away. "This is unbelievable. I literally haven't done anything wrong." That's when the flight attendant arrived. Her name tag read Jessica, and she had that particular expression that all experienced flight attendants develop, the one that says they've seen everything, handled everything, and are prepared to handle whatever fresh chaos the universe throws at them today. "Is everything all right here?" Jessica asked, her voice professional but warm, eyes scanning the situation quickly. Maya spoke first, keeping her tone measured. "I've asked this passenger several times to stop kicking my seat. She's refusing and has become confrontational about it." Jessica turned to Lily, her professional smile still in place but her eyes assessing. "Miss, airline policy requires that all passengers respect each other's space and comfort. Could you please refrain from putting your feet against this passenger's seat?" You would think this would be the end of it. You would think a 19-year-old would recognize the voice of authority, realize they'd pushed too far, and back down with at least some semblance of grace. You would be wrong. Lily crossed her arms. "I'm not doing anything wrong. She's just being sensitive. I have a right to be comfortable on this flight. I paid good money for this ticket." One of her friends tried to intervene. "Lily, maybe just." "No." Lily cut her off. "This is ridiculous. First her, now the flight attendant? What, am I supposed to sit here like a statue for 7 hours? My legs need to stretch." Jessica's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Anyone who's worked in customer service knows that micro-expression, the moment when patience is being tested but professionalism must prevail. "Miss, I understand you want to be comfortable. However, your comfort cannot come at the expense of another passenger's experience. This is a standard rule on all airlines. I'm going to need you to comply with this request." "Or what?" The question came out bratty, challenging, the kind of question that teenagers ask parents when they are testing boundaries, except this wasn't a parent, and this wasn't a living room. This was a flying metal tube with 300 other people who all just wanted to get to London without drama. Jessica's professionalism never cracked. "Or we'll need to discuss further options when we land. But I'm confident we won't need to go there. I'm sure you can be respectful for the remainder of this flight." She waited. The whole section waited. Maya waited, hoping this would finally be over. Lily rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes at a flight attendant, and muttered something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like whatever, before turning back to her phone. Jessica gave Maya an apologetic look that said volumes, touched her arm gently in solidarity, and moved down the aisle to continue her service. For about 15 minutes, there was peace. Maya actually managed to read 2 full pages of her speech. The tension in her shoulders began to ease slightly. Maybe it was over. Maybe the girl had finally gotten the message. And then, tap, tap, push. Lily had done it again. But this time, it wasn't just Maya who noticed. The elderly gentleman beside Maya stiffened. The woman across the aisle shook her head in disbelief. A couple too rose up, turned around, their faces showing clear irritation. Because Lily's disruption wasn't just affecting Maya anymore. Her loud voice, her confrontational attitude, her constant movement and commentary with her friends, it was disturbing an entire section of the plane. The mother with 2 young children a few rows back leaned forward and said, loud enough to be heard, "Could you please keep it down? My kids are trying to sleep." Lily turned around, incredulous. "Are you serious right now? I'm just talking to my friends." "You're being very loud," the mother replied firmly. "And disrespectful to everyone around you." "Oh my God!" Lily threw her hands up. "What is wrong with everyone on this flight?" Her friends were shrinking now, clearly embarrassed. One whispered urgently, "Lily, please, just chill out." But Lily was on a roll, had worked herself into a state where backing down would feel like losing, and for someone used to always getting their way, losing wasn't an option. That's when she kicked Maya's seat again. Not a tap. Not an accidental brush. A full, aggressive kick. And that's when something remarkable happened. From the row directly behind Lily, row 26, a voice rose. Calm. Authoritative. With an edge of steel beneath the courtesy. "Young lady, that's enough." Every head in the section turned. Even Lily turned, her mouth already open with what was surely going to be another snarky response, but the words died on her lips. Because standing up from seat 26B, in a crisp white shirt with navy epaulets bearing 4 golden stripes, was Captain Rodriguez. Now, here's something you need to understand about airline protocol. Pilots almost never leave the cockpit during a flight unless there's a serious situation. They're up there flying the plane, managing systems, communicating with air traffic control. The cabin crew handles passenger issues. That's the hierarchy. That's how it works. So when a captain stands up in the cabin, personally, to address a passenger problem, that means things have escalated beyond the normal channels. That means this situation has gone from minor disturbance to potential safety concern. And every single passenger in that section knew it. Captain Rodriguez stood at his full height. He was maybe 5'10", solidly built, with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of face that suggested decades of experience making life-or-death decisions with calm precision. He'd been deadheading back to London after flying a route to Chicago, seated in the last row where off-duty crew members often sit. He'd witnessed the entire escalation from beginning to end. And he'd had enough. The cabin went silent. Not kind of quiet, completely silent. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones were lowered. Even the ambient hum of the aircraft seemed to quiet down, as if the plane itself was listening. Lily stared up at him, her bravado visibly crumbling in real time. "What's your name?" Captain Rodriguez asked. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the voice of someone accustomed to being heard and obeyed in high-pressure situations. Lily," she stammered. "Lily, I'm Captain Rodriguez. I've been observing this situation for the past 30 minutes, and I want to explain something to you very clearly." He didn't sound angry. That's what was so powerful about it. He sounded like a disappointed father, a teacher confronting a student who knows better, a professional dealing with an issue that should never have escalated this far. When you board an aircraft, you enter into a social contract with every other person on that plane. That contract says that your rights end where another person's begin. You have the right to be comfortable, but not at the expense of someone else's comfort. You have the right to enjoy your flight, but not to ruin someone else's flight. Do you understand what I'm saying? Lily nodded, her face flushed red. Her friends had literally pressed themselves against the sides of their seats, trying to disappear. This passenger, Rodriguez gestured to Maya, has asked you politely, multiple times, to respect her space. A flight attendant has instructed you to comply with basic courtesy. Other passengers have expressed their discomfort with your behavior. And despite all of that, you have continued to disrupt this cabin. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Now, I want to be very clear about something else. Federal Aviation Administration regulations give the pilot in command, that's me, in this case, though my colleague is currently flying this aircraft, the authority to ensure the safety and comfort of all passengers. Interfering with the duties of a crew member is a federal offense. Disturbing other passengers to the point where it affects the safe operation of a flight is a federal offense. These aren't school rules, Lily. These are federal laws. The color drained from Lily's face. I don't think you're a bad person, Rodriguez continued, his tone softening just slightly. I think you're young, and I think you've made some poor choices today. But those choices have consequences. And right now, you need to decide what happens next. If you've been enjoying this story so far, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you do not want to miss how this ends. And I've got tons of other incredible true stories on this channel that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, back to what happened next. Captain Rodriguez wasn't finished. He glanced at Jessica, who had returned to the section along with another flight attendant, both ready to take whatever action necessary. Here's what's going to happen, Rodriguez said, his voice still calm but absolutely firm. You're going to be moved to a different seat for the remainder of this flight. You will sit quietly. You will not disturb other passengers. You will comply with every instruction from the cabin crew. If you can't do that, we have protocols in place for unruly passengers, including potential restraints and law enforcement meeting us on the ground in London. Do I make myself clear? Why yes, Lily whispered. She looked like she might cry. I need to hear you say it. Will you comply with these instructions? Yes. Her voice was small now, all the swagger and attitude completely gone. Good. Rodriguez nodded to Jessica. Please relocate this passenger. Jessica gestured for Lily to gather her things. The girl fumbled with her backpack, her hands shaking, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Her friends handed over her belongings in silence, their faces burning with second-hand embarrassment. As Lily stood in the aisle, preparing to be moved to a seat at the back of the plane, coincidentally right next to where a federal air marshal was seated, though nobody announced that detail explicitly, she turned to Maya. For the first time since boarding, Lily looked genuinely remorseful. The performance was over. The mask had cracked. What remained was just a young woman who'd made a terrible error in judgment and was now facing the full weight of it. Lily's voice cracked. I'm sorry. Maya looked up at her. For a moment, the entire cabin held its breath, waiting to see how this woman, who had been disrespected, dismissed, and deliberately antagonized for nearly an hour, would respond. Maya's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Recognition that the apology, however belated, had been offered. Thank you, Maya said simply. Lily was escorted to the back of the plane, where she would spend the remaining 6 hours in supervised silence, sitting next to a federal air marshal who kept a professional eye on her. Her friends, left behind in their original seats, sat in mortified silence for the rest of the flight, not once attempting to film anything for their vlog. Captain Rodriguez looked down at Maya. I apologize for what you've had to endure. That should never have happened. Thank you for intervening, Maya replied. I appreciate it more than you know. He nodded, then addressed the surrounding passengers, many of whom were still watching the scene unfold. I know flights can be stressful. We're all tired, we're all cramped, we all just want to get where we're going. But we're also all human beings deserving of basic dignity and respect. That never changes, whether you're on the ground or at 35,000 feet. With that, he returned to his seat, and the cabin slowly returned to its normal rhythm. But something had shifted. Passengers who'd been silent witnesses to the conflict exchanged meaningful looks with Maya, offering small smiles of solidarity. The elderly gentleman beside her patted her hand gently. The woman across the aisle gave her a thumbs up. Maya reopened her laptop. Her hands were steadier now. She looked at the title of her keynote speech, Respect Across Boundaries, the Universal Language of Human Dignity, and allowed herself a small, ironic smile. Sometimes, she thought, the universe provides the research material you need exactly when you need it. The remaining hours of Flight 447 passed without incident. Maya finished polishing her speech. The elderly gentleman finished his book and they had a lovely conversation about British mystery novels. The mother with the children thanked Maya for her patience and grace during the whole ordeal, saying her kids had actually learned something valuable by witnessing how to handle conflict with dignity. When the plane began its descent into Heathrow Airport, the cabin filled with that particular energy that comes at the end of a long flight, passengers stretching, gathering belongings, preparing to re-enter the world as changed versions of themselves. Some changes are subtle, just a little more tired or a little more eager to see loved ones. Some changes are more profound. As the plane taxied to the gate, Maya gathered her things, said farewell to the gentleman beside her, and prepared to disembark. She was thinking about the conference, about her hotel, about the speech she'd give in just 2 days. She wasn't thinking about Lily. But Lily was thinking about her. As passengers filed out into the jetway, moving at that slow shuffle that airplane exits always require, Maya became aware of someone standing off to the side, waiting. She looked over. It was Lily. The girl was standing against the wall of the jetway, letting other passengers pass, clearly waiting for someone. When she saw Maya, she straightened up, looking nervous and uncertain. Maya could have walked past. Nobody would have blamed her. The situation was over. The apology had been given. There was no requirement for further interaction. But Maya didn't walk past. She stopped. Lily approached hesitantly, her friends nowhere in sight. They'd apparently rushed ahead, eager to put the whole embarrassing incident behind them. "Dr. Thompson," Lily said quietly. Maya was surprised. "You know my name?" I asked one of the flight attendants. "I wanted to know who you were. Who I'd been so awful to." Lily took a breath. "I looked you up on my phone. I read about your work. About your research. About the speech you're giving." She looked down at her shoes, those dirty white sneakers that had started this whole thing. I needed to say something to you before we went separate ways." "That apology on the plane? That was because I was scared and embarrassed. This one is because I actually mean it." Maya waited, letting the girl find her words. "I was horrible to you. And I think I was horrible because I've never really had to think about other people. Like, really think about them. Not just as, like, NPCs in my life, but as actual people with feelings and dignity and rights that are just as important as mine." Lily's eyes were red, like she'd been crying during the last hours of the flight. "My whole life, I've gotten away with stuff because I'm young and white and my parents have money. I've never had someone really check me like that. Never had to face actual consequences. And I know that sounds so privileged and awful, and it is, and I'm starting to realize that maybe I'm not the person I thought I was. Maybe I'm the person who kicks seats and doesn't care who I hurt." She looked up at Maya, tears spilling over now. "I don't want to be that person. I'm so sorry for how I treated you. You didn't deserve any of that. And I'm sorry it took a captain threatening me with federal charges to make me see what I was doing." Maya studied the young woman in front of her. She'd spent her entire career studying human behavior, social dynamics, the ways people learn, or fail to learn, empathy and respect. She'd written papers on transformation, on the moments when people's worldviews shift, when they begin to see beyond themselves. This was one of those moments. "Lily," Maya said gently, "I appreciate this apology. I can see it's genuine, and that matters." "I want to do better," Lily said earnestly. "I want to be better. I'm going to read your research. I'm going to actually think about this stuff. Because if I can be that horrible to someone on a plane, what else am I doing that I don't even notice? How many other people have I hurt?" Maya reached into her bag and pulled out one of her business cards, something she'd had printed for the conference. She handed it to Lily. "Growth requires discomfort," Maya said. "You experienced that today. The question is what you do with it. Some people get defensive and learn nothing. Some people feel ashamed and never change. And some people take that discomfort and use it as a catalyst for real transformation. Lily clutched the card like it was precious. My email is on there, Maya continued. If you're serious about understanding this better, if you genuinely want to learn, reach out to me in a few weeks. After you've had time to process what happened today. After you've thought about not just this incident, but your patterns of behavior in general. If you do reach out, I'll send you some readings. Some ways to think about empathy, privilege, and respect. Really? Lily's face showed surprise and something like hope. Really? But here's the thing, Lily, this isn't about me forgiving you or making you feel better. This is about you doing the hard work of examining yourself and choosing to be different. That work is uncomfortable. It's ongoing. It never really ends. Are you willing to do it? Yes, Lily said without hesitation. I am. Maya smiled then, a real smile. Then I believe you. Kindness and respect will take you farther than any plane ever can. Remember that. I will, Lily promised. I really will. They parted ways in the terminal, Maya heading toward ground transportation to her hotel, Lily presumably meeting up with her friends, both of them forever changed by an encounter that started with dirty sneakers and ended with a lesson that money can't buy. 3 days later, Dr. Maya Thompson stood at a podium in a conference hall in London, looking out at 300 faces from 50 different countries. She began her keynote speech on respect across boundaries, on the universal language of human dignity. And she told them a story. She told them about a plane ride, about a conflict, about a young woman who made mistakes and a captain who intervened, about moments of tension and transformation at 35,000 feet. The audience was riveted. Because everyone in that room had been there, not on that specific flight, but in that specific situation. Everyone had witnessed disrespect, had experienced rudeness, had wondered whether to speak up or stay silent. Everyone understood the dynamics at play: power, privilege, race, age, entitlement, and the choice, because it is always a choice, to see other people as fully human. Maya's speech that day was more than just academic theory. It was lived experience. It was proof that respect isn't just an abstract concept to study, it's a daily practice, a constant negotiation, a fundamental requirement for human society to function. The speech went viral. News outlets picked it up. It was shared across social media. People from around the world sent Maya messages saying they'd had similar experiences, thanking her for handling the situation with such grace, admiring her composure and dignity. But Maya didn't do it for the recognition. She did it because it was right. Because even when someone treats you poorly, you don't have to sink to their level. You can stand firm in your own dignity while still leaving room for others to learn and grow. That's the real lesson here. Not that bad behavior should be tolerated, it shouldn't. Not that consequences aren't necessary, they absolutely are. Captain Rodriguez was right to intervene. The airline was right to move Lily. Rules exist for a reason, and respect is non-negotiable. But the lesson is that even in our righteous anger, even when we've been wronged, we can choose how we respond. We can choose grace over vengeance. We can choose to see the humanity in people, even people who temporarily forget to see ours. 2 weeks after returning from London, Maya received an email. The subject line read, "From Lily, thank you and I'm trying." In it, Lily described the work she'd been doing, reading the articles Maya recommended, having difficult conversations with her family about privilege, volunteering with a local organization that worked on cross-cultural understanding. She wasn't perfect, she wrote. She still caught herself in old patterns sometimes. But she was trying. She was learning. She was changing. She ended the email with this: "I'll never forget what you taught me that day. Not the captain, not the rules, not the fear of consequences, those got my attention. But you taught me something deeper. You showed me that dignity isn't something you demand from others, it's something you embody yourself, no matter how others treat you. Thank you for seeing me as someone worth teaching, even after how I behaved. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that grace." Maya read it twice, then saved it in a folder labeled "Why I Do This Work." Because that's the thing about teaching, about standing up for what's right, about maintaining your dignity in difficult situations. You never know what seeds you're planting. You never know which moment might be the one that changes someone's entire trajectory. That flight from Chicago to London lasted 7 hours. The lesson it taught will last a lifetime. So here's my question for you. Have you ever been in a situation like this, whether on a plane, in a store, at work, anywhere, where someone disrespected you or someone else, and you had to decide whether to speak up or stay silent? What did you do, and what happened? Share your stories in the comments below. I read every single one, and I know the community here would love to hear about your experiences. Because stories like Maya's, stories like Lily's, they're happening every single day, all around us. Every interaction is an opportunity. Every conflict is a chance to choose dignity over drama, respect over revenge, growth over grudges. The question isn't whether we'll face these moments. The question is how we'll handle them when we do. And maybe, just maybe, we can all take a lesson from Dr. Maya Thompson. Stand firm in your dignity. Speak up against disrespect. But never close the door on someone's potential to learn, grow, and become better. Because at the end of the day, we're all just passengers on this journey together. And the way we treat each other matters, in the air, on the ground, and everywhere in between. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.